What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSDmode podcast interview, the #1 podcast in the industry for real estate agents to learn how to get shit done. Make sure to check us out at www.gsdmode.com to check out other GSD Mode podcast interviews and other additional free content, free webinar trainings, and more epic content that I'm always putting out there to help real estate agents like you crush your real estate goals. Just a few quick plugs before we begin. If you are a driven real estate agent that has big goals, big dreams, and want to create greatness, then check out my personal mentorship coaching program at www.90daymastery.com, where you can see how it works, what you can expect, see a ton of testimonials about the massive success other realtors just like yourself have experienced with the program, and learn why thousands and thousands of real estate agents have decided to join my personal coaching program to help them change their business and life forever. All right, so as real estate agents, hands down, by far, the #1 most important tool in our real estate business is our CRM. If you want to use the exact same website and CRM I use that provides you with all my personal follow-up drips that allows my team to generate thousands of leads each and every month and close 2+ homes every single day, check us out at www.perfectstormnow.com to see the best, most effective, and affordable website CRM system on the planet. If you are going to sign up, make sure to go to perfectstormgsd.com. You want to make sure that you go there to register, perfectstormgsd.com, where you can get the registration fee waived and only pay $199 a month. One last quick thing. Your support truly means a lot. If you find these interviews and any other GSD Mode content powerful, please make sure to share it with anyone that you feel can benefit from this content. All right, it is time to jump on into today's GSD Mode podcast interview. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview where every single week we interview top real estate agents, top entrepreneurs, and straight top badasses that they're dominating their space. These are people that are choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves and for their family members. And again, are just choosing to go out there and become more in this life. So today, you guys, we got a very special guest on the show, a dude that is a good buddy of mine. I've known our guest for a couple of years now, and I've seen him just go out there and create just an insane, amazing real estate business in a very short amount of time. You know, there's a couple of years I've been watching our guest Chris build this. You know, just like all of us, we start from somewhere. Yeah, right. As a new agent, and this is a dude with it within less than 2 years. Is out there now having $60,000 months. And it's not one of these guys with a mega team, this is just him grinding out, creating massive success. So really stoked and honored to have our guest on the show. So our guest, you guys, was his previous career before he got into real estate. He was a top nationally ranked stockbroker that was out there making millions, had some adversity there and just crashed, lost everything, and had to rebuild and restart over. And like I said, in a matter of a couple of years, man, he found real estate, jumped into the real estate game, and is doing some really impressive, awesome, amazing things. So really stoked and honored to have my good friend, Chris Igoe, on the show. Welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you very much, Josh. I am totally, first of all, flattered. That's an amazing intro. I appreciate it. I should bring you on all my listing appointments. I'm fired up. When I first found the podcast, my initial reaction when I first saw it was, one day I'm going to get on that podcast. So to be here today, I'm honored. I'm flattered. I'm hoping that my story will inspire and motivate some people. And that's it. So let's roll.
Yeah, and what's really cool about what you do, man, that I love we have a lot of guests on the show, and we talk on the show of what they do. But you're a guy, like, you've created a Facebook group. Now, I don't want to give the Facebook group until the end, right? So that everybody stays engaged here. But you've also created a Facebook group, which I think is awesome because it also forces you to have an element of accountability. I don't know if you created it for that, but now, like, you're expected to show up and perform, and you got thousands of eyeballs watching you. But you created a Facebook group where people can actually watch you do your live dials, I'm in the group, man, and some of the stuff that you're doing, like I said, is so damn impressive. So, which we'll plug that at the end, dude. So those of you watching, listening, at the end, Chris will give his Facebook group where you can watch him do this stuff, live every single day. So it's not just us talking on this podcast. Like, I mean, this dude is legit. It's and like I said, I've seen the numbers, I've seen his closing statements, right? So this is definitely no fluff here. So real quick, as always, man, I like to get an idea of our guest journeys that led them to the real estate space. So, if you were to wind the clocks, can you just kind of talk to us about like what you did before you got into real estate and how your journey led you to this path?
Absolutely, yeah. So let me rewind the clock a little bit. Growing up, I really kind of feel like I had some amazing advantages. My parents were both, I come from a loving family, mother, father, sister, but they were sales professionals. And it's funny reflecting, looking back, my father was about my age when he left corporate America, started his own business, and I got to watch that in real time. And I think he's one of the greatest salesmen in the world. I watched him literally work his ass off 24/7, totally consumed by the process. And I saw firsthand what it is to build a business from scratch. So literally pennies in a jar to a multi-million-dollar international banking software company. So I had the advantage of growing up with that work ethic modeled for me. And I've never really known anything other than what that obsessive work ethic looks like. So essentially doing big things, getting shit done, that's in my DNA. My mom likes to tell a story when I was growing up, and you'll probably relate to this. I know you got two young kids. My daughters are 3 and 5, so I can't imagine actually ever doing this. But when they were grocery shopping back in the day, so I don't know, I'm a toddler, maybe 5 or 6, they'd be walking through the aisle, and my dad was teaching me to essentially yell, to be loud, to project. And I can't imagine doing that now, but it's funny, he was trying to teach me that in order to be heard, you got to be loud. So it's one of those things that I really look back at now, and I'm like, that was an added bonus, right? So again, fairly normal suburban background. I'll fast forward a little bit. The summer of 5th grade, you hear about the lemonade stands. Well, this is my version of that. So the summer of 5th grade, I guess you're maybe 10 years old back then. It occurred to me that I needed to make some money. So this is back 30 years ago. There's no internet. There's no cell phone. There's no screens. There's no computers really. But there were reading lists that you had to do over the summer. So I remember the Hardy Boys was like a series of books that I was reading at the time, and the detective agency thing. So it occurred to me that I should start my own business and start a detective agency. Now, mind you, I'm 10 years old, so this is ridiculous. But I brought it to my dad, and he's like, Chris, nobody's going to hire you to be a detective, but they might hire you to do some work around the house. So he encouraged me to ask the neighbors if I could do some work for them. And that's exactly what I did. It's kind of funny to think about it now, but the truth is I got my first job by door knocking the neighborhood and asking the neighbors if there was any work that I could do. So I remember this really very, very clearly. I literally walked around the entire block. I knocked every door. 99% of the people either didn't answer or rejected me. I was allowed to walk to the end of where my parents could see. So like the end of the street. The last house that I knocked on, super sweet woman answers the door. I'll never forget her name. It's Miss Fertig. She answers the door, and she's totally impressed with the fact that I'm, my moxie. And I ask her if there's any odd jobs I can do around the house. She tells me. She pauses. She thinks about it. And I got my first live rebuttal. She's like, I don't think you're strong enough. Well, I flexed my muscle. I told her I'm very strong and I'll be happy to do any work that she has. So that was my first job. I got the job. For the next 2 years, I worked every weekend. I pulled weeds in her garden. I learned how to tend a rose garden. And that was it. So my first job involved door knocking the neighborhood, getting rejected or ignored by 99% of the block, and overcoming an objection to get a prospect to listen. So it's kind of funny. That's I was getting paid $20 for a 10-year-old. That's big time money. So Again, and that was 30 years ago. So $20 was a big deal. So fast forward, right? Life happens, school, sports, and unfortunately, in my life, there was a lot of tragedy. Between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college, there was a lot of trauma. Friends died, friends got hurt, and I didn't really adjust to that transition very well at all. I was floundering, and I was floundering big time. So for me, college was a complete waste of time. I knew I had lots of potential, but I felt like I was totally lost. And I went to my dad. He suggested that I work with him, and that didn't feel right. He had built his own business. You know, I did a little bit of work for him. It was a family business, but I knew that wasn't going to be my opportunity. So back then you did what you did, which was go to the newspaper and look through the classifieds. Again, there was no internet, and none of the tools that are available now were available back then. So I just went through the classifieds, and I found an ad that was exciting to me. It said, no experience necessary. Well, perfect. I had none. They're looking for aggressive, competitive, sports-minded individuals for an unlimited earning potential job. And I was like, hell yes, ding, 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 whatever it is, sign me up, right? So this was the mid 90s in Boca Raton. And, another word for that would be Long Island South. What I didn't know at the time is that I had found myself right into the heart of the Wolf of Wall Street's incubator. So everybody knows Jordan Belfort. Well, his proteges had built up all kinds of different retail brokerages around Boca Raton. So my first interview consisted of me coming in, meeting a broker who ended up becoming my mentor. And he showed me a copy of his paycheck, which was for some obscene amount of money. I think it was like 200 grand. I'm like, stop the presses, whatever it is, I'm all in. Let's give it a shot. So that's what I did. And I got this crazy indoctrination into a very crazy world of fast money. And I was hooked, but I got the absolute best phone sales training on the planet. And it consisted of, I would call literally hundreds of accredited investors, just pounding the phone, asking them to buy millions of dollars worth of stock. And the insane part was a lot of them did. So again, constantly pounding the phone. So fast forward, I blinked. It's 18 years later. I had generated millions of dollars in commissions, and I really thought I was set. I had built a team. I'd come to a point where I guess I got comfortable. Not that I got lazy, but I really thought I had arrived, and this was it. And then overnight, everything stopped completely. The firm was sold, the business model was finished, and we were out of business. So here I am, and it's terrifying. I mean, there's no other word for it. My peers, my friends are out there making partner. They're selling their businesses. Some of them are retiring, and I'm back to square one. It's like Monopoly. Don't pass go. Do not collect $200. You just went from hero to zero, and I was absolutely terrified. So it was scary is all I'm trying to relate. It was a really scary time. And looking back now, I had this limiting belief, which made it even more terrifying, that the only thing that I was able to do was sell stock over the phone. And I was almost paralyzed by that fear. So one of the things I've learned in my journey, and I hope this transmits to anybody who's watching, that your mindset is the absolute most important thing for you to get right. Because if you've got your mind right and you're squared in and focused, you can achieve absolutely anything. Now, there is an element to the story that I can't overlook, because it's one of the things that stunted me essentially in every way. As a stockbroker, I became addicted to the fast life. And by that, I'm talking fast money, fast everything. You can do the math. I knew in order for me to have a shot of success in any form of life moving forward, I need to completely eliminate anything that tied me to that world. And I'd have to eliminate everything that didn't serve me or my family or my business. And to be incredibly honest, it was really, really hard. None of it was easy. To go basically from the top of the food chain to the bottom of the food chain overnight, it was the greatest mindfuck I've ever had to experience. And the mental gymnastics that I needed to do to to keep my sanity was just intense. So bam, there I am. I'm newly married. I'm newly sober. I've got a new baby daughter. I have another one on the way, although at the time I don't know it. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do next. So I'll ask you, what does a middle-aged dude who's terrified about his prospects in life go out and do?
Yeah, I don't know.
Get your real estate license. So that's what I did. And I went out, got my real estate license. My cousin actually, shout out to my cousin Billy down in Fort Lauderdale, is a successful real estate broker. And I had the wrong idea that because he was doing it, I could do it and it would be easy. Well, it was definitely not easy, and it was incredibly humbling. So I took some time. I realized that out the gates, I would need to partner with somebody who had a little bit more experience than I did. And I got connected with a mega agent in my market, and I basically just got to work. Started as buyer's agent. I learned the basics. I'm talking about like the most extreme basics, how to set up a search in the MLS, how to work a lockbox, how to schedule showings. But one of the most important lessons I learned was to answer the phone when a lead comes in within 5 minutes. And now I've since learned that if you can do it faster than 5 minutes, that's even better. But that was the main takeaway. So the first deal I ever closed came off a lead that came in at 11 o'clock at night. I'll never forget it. I was in bed. My wife's next to me. We're watching TV. The phone dings. And at this point, I hate the fact that the phone's even dinging, but it dings. I call them back, and they were so impressed with it that the next day we went out and put a $180,000 condo under contract. So my first 2 months in the business, I closed 2 small deals, 2 rentals. Now I don't even count rentals as part of my production, but at the time I was like 4 deals in my first month. I'm going to dominate. This is easy. And that's not how it played out at all. So I started production in March of 2015. I was coaching myself. I thought I kind of knew everything. I did 7 deals and 6 rentals, and the price points were really low. I hadn't figured out lead generation. I was relying on my agent for leads. And what's the stat? How many real estate agents fail?
Not 90% the first 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, here's another stat in my market. There's 40,000 agents in Palm Beach County, and of that, only 1,000, I think, do 10 deals or more a year. So look, I was on my way to becoming a statistic, and I didn't even realize it. Now, you'd think that somebody with my track record and my skill set would have figured some of these things out, but the reality of it is I was trying to be what I thought a real estate agent is, not who I am, and I absolutely hated it. So I was saying yes to everything. I was glad handling everybody. There's so much advice that gets thrown at you when you're a brand new agent that it's really hard to figure out what's real and what's not. You've got a feeding frenzy of coaches, vendors, self-help gurus. Most of it's total bullshit, but and a complete ripoff, I might add, because if you buy into any of that or all of that, you'll go broke quick. But the bottom line is I was failing, and I was failing fast. Now, there's a saying I learned over the years in sales. You might have heard. It's fake it till you make it. That's exactly what I was doing. I was pretending to be a realtor, but while all this was happening, for the first time in my life, I was experiencing extreme chronic pain. So I got to shift gears here a bit from a health perspective. So one of the things I did when I, basically started my life over is I made a commitment to fitness, and I got involved in triathlon training. So I thought to myself, what could be healthier than that? Throw yourself into that. You'll get in prime condition. You're middle-aged. Triathlon's the way to go. I got totally addicted to it. So I'm doing hundreds of miles biking, hundreds of miles running, and I completely destroyed my hip. I didn't know it at the time. It started as a little twinge in my leg, but it turned into just constant, unbearable pain. Now, I was still grinding. I would get little glimpses of success. I get proof of concept on some of the things that I was reading about. So I'll give you an example. I had subscribed to a lead service, and they sent me a seller lead for a trailer home. So, or should I say it's a modular home, right? So it was the first time they had sent me a lead, and I in my mind, I'm going to do an amazing job. First lead that came in, and I did. Now the price point on this trailer home was something like 50 or 60 grand. It's, I mean, completely reeked of smoke. It was a disaster, and I sold it. So very quickly, I became the dominant agent for this trailer park, which is great. You know, that's the proof of concept I was looking for: sell a home and then become the dominant listing agent. Unfortunately, it was in a trailer park with a price point less than 100, which is not exactly where I wanted to be. So again, it's proof of concept, but I was burning myself out and I was in constant pain. Now, it's almost impossible for me to describe how bad it is to be just consumed by pain. I think I have a high threshold for pain. I'm a tough guy, I played lots of sports. This is something completely different. This is where you can't sleep at night, that you can't think, you're constantly angry. Getting in and out of a car is just almost impossible. The phone, I was so on edge and frazzled by the pain that the phone would ring and I'd be furious that somebody called me. All along, you want people to be calling you. This is the name of the game. But I got to the point where my first waking thought in the morning was that I'm fucked, which is no way to live. So started to seek medical attention, which is probably the right thing to do. I probably should have done it earlier. But bottom line, I learned that I needed a hip replacement. The day that I learned that I needed a hip replacement was also right after that I had a listing appointment. So I went from being told they're going to amputate my femur and attach hardware to my leg and go through this major life-changing surgery. And then the next hour I got a listing appointment. So I went to this appointment in a complete fog, completely overwhelmed by this terrible news. And I should also say I had done such an amazing job getting this seller on the phone that it was a layup. All I had to do was go there and execute. But this is an example of exactly what my year was like. I was just in constant pain. So long story short, I went there, I shit the bed. It was the worst. It was the worst listing appointment in the history of the world. Needless to say, I didn't get it. But that's what the whole year was like for me. So I was still in denial about my health. I put the surgery off for way longer than I should have. And it was because I was terrified. But finally, I got to a point where I realized that without it, I don't have a shot in business or in life. I mean, I needed to do something. So that year I did 16 deals. They were very low price points. I made something like 60 grand. For me, that number is humiliating. I mean, I used to have $60,000 months as a stockbroker. And now here I was failing miserably, financially, physically broken, spiritually broken. I felt totally hopeless. My wife, who was an absolute saint for putting up with me when I was in this condition, finally got through to me and was like, flat out, get the surgery. Either get busy living or get busy dying. So that's what I did. I mean, I realized it was that severe. I got the surgery.
Second year in the business, so 2016, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, no, that was the surgery was 2015.
Okay.
The second year, yeah. And so when I opened my eyes from the surgery, it was instant, immediately. The first thing I wasn't in pain, and I had been in pain for so long that it was almost like miraculous. I woke up, first thing I said was, I'm not in pain. And I made a decision in that moment, literally in that moment, that I would not let anything hold me back. It was like being born again. So look, mindset's everything. Once I made the decision to get the surgery, I went from terrified to empowered very quickly. And the month after the surgery, this is how I found you. You're basically rehabbing. You're not doing anything. So I had a full month on my hands to essentially just recover from the surgery. And I was everywhere looking for help, whether it be physically to recover from the surgery, but also I knew I needed some help in real estate. So I found your podcast. Your content, your delivery was something I could relate to. I still honestly thought it might be a scam, but I was desperate. I mean, I really was. I took a leap of faith, and thank God I did. I took what at the time felt like a huge gamble. I mean, it literally was like my last red cent. I mean, I was on fumes at that point, but it was one of the best investments in myself that I ever made. So on paper, I grew exponentially year over year, but internally, I still knew I wasn't doing what I needed to do. I hadn't connected the dots from what I'd done previously on the phones to what I needed to do here. So when I think about it, and because I've done a lot of analysis on this, if I get really honest, there was a ton of shame around what I felt was failure in the other career. And I really just hadn't forgiven myself yet. I was one of the top producers in the country as a stockbroker, and here I was barely able to make $100 grand. I felt pathetic. And at the time, I didn't really see it, but I'd found a million new creative ways to victimize myself. I'd gone from the abundance mindset to the scarcity mindset. I went from big to small mentally, and I was totally overwhelmed. I become completely underwhelming, and I was delusional because on paper, I could make a story up that I had grown a lot, but really I hadn't. I mean, if you go from making 100 to 200, that's a nice percentage move, right? But it's still no money. So here's where the story gets exciting, and here's where everything starts to change. I flew out to the Mastery Alumni in-person event, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that, twice a year, Josh hosts an in-person mastermind for his business, Mastery Alumni. And look, this isn't some rah-rah thing. It's really actionable content for 2 days straight. You're in there with real producers. So I got out there, and I found myself in a scenario where I raised my hand to do a live role play, and it was in front of the group, and I thought I did really well. As I was walking back to my seat and everybody's applauding, I kind of had this like aha moment, like, why am I not doing this consistently every day? And that's when the bell went off. I knew that I had the talent, and I knew I wasn't executing. So I made a decision right then and there as I was walking back to my seat that I was never going to feel like that again. And I haven't. So when I got home, I took massive action. Now, I'd already been on, I'd subscribed to some of the other services out there. I was on Vulcan 7. I had the Mojo Dialer. I was calling the expireds and the canceleds every day. But I had made a commitment. Now I'm going to do it like for real. And so that's what I did. And I also knew that for my stockbroker days, I'm way more effective when I've got an audience and I'm in a boardroom than I am if I'm holed up in an office by myself. So it occurred to me that it would be really powerful if I could create an accountability tool for myself and create, for lack of a better term, a virtual boardroom. So that's what I did. I went out there, I set up this Facebook group to do my calls in live. I invited 2 people from the alumni, and that was it. It was only meant for the 3 of us. So my first session on the phone, I set an appointment. The next week, I set 20 appointments. And I basically drove myself nuts driving around 2 counties, which was a complete disaster because my systems and processes weren't completely dialed in at that point. But, pain is the best teacher. So I quickly learned the value of getting all that stuff dialed in, knowing my capacity. I hired a transaction coordinator, complete rock star, to help me out with the things that aren't really the highest and best use of my time. So shout out to Kristen. You're an absolute rock star. So fast forward a year, right? That was October of last year. So the real estate cold calls room is 1 year old, okay? We went from the 2 members that I had invited. There's almost 3,000 people from around the world that watch me do these calls live, which is just insanely cool. And I'm totally blown away that it's grown like that. But my goal in there is to, I wanted to create the environment that I never had. I wanted to create a group that I just didn't see anybody doing anything like this in the real estate community. So when I went out there, I was just like, I'm going to go like I used to as a stockbroker. And it's working. So my goal is to help people set more appointments, be more effective on the phone, earn more money. I get a lot of feedback from people who are just, and it's amazing when this happens, but they credit me for having some level of impact on their life because they watched me on the phone and they modeled what I did. But that's it, man. I love helping people. I love coaching people. I love helping people make more money. It's really it's not even a product, it's free, but it's the thing I wish I would have had when I first got involved in real estate, because it's awesome. So that's it. So here, let me just break that down for you. So here's what the massive action in the group did for me, right? By getting intentional and accountable over the last year, my business has completely exploded. My list volume went from, it was under 5, now it's north of 15 million. My sold volume went from a little bit over 2, at 7 now. I've got 2 under contracts, so I'm at 9 essentially. I'll finish the year between 10 and 12 million. If I get lucky and throw a Hail Mary, maybe 15. But I've got a pipeline of inventory. I've got a ton of leads. I've got a ton of momentum, and I intend to scale and double it for next year. So it started with the decision. Walking back from the stage at the alumni in-person role play that I'm going to take committed, massive action, and everything changed.
Now, do you think that decision at the alumni, because when you were there doing that, I mean, we had, we have 200 just top producers from all over the U.S. and Canada fly in for that, and because you got up there and you killed it. You did an epic job in the role play, and do you think you kind of needed that affirmation from a lot of other top producers that maybe you were looking up to? There were people in that room doing 100 million a year that were like, dude, you high five me, like you crushed it. Like, do you think that you needed that level of confidence to be able to make that decision of, man, I've got what it takes? Because you were broken mentally, as you talked about, they're defeated from before of, but now that gave you that level of confidence where you could then truly commit to, man, I got this.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I had gotten to a point where, I was working from a home office and I felt so isolated and disconnected I was still working and everything, but I just felt so isolated and disconnected that to really be in this incubator of top producers and to get the positive feedback, it was exactly what I needed. So I got that. I was like, you know what? It's go time.
Yeah.
It's been, yeah.
So what I like about all of this, dude, and really love about this, and we've talked about this a lot. We talked about this right before we hit the record button of, nothing that we do on a daily basis is revolutionary. There's no secrets to it. It's that consistency of just showing up and doing the work. So can you walk us through, because we just talked about, hey man, I went from, appointment the first call to 20 appointments the next week. I mean, most people can't even fathom setting 20 appointments in a week. Right? Like, can you walk us through what that looks like? I mean, when are you showing up? Who are you dialing, like on a consistent week over week basis? Like, give us an idea of what that action looks like.
Yeah, sure. So in my market, I mean, there's a ton of expireds, right? So we're getting anywhere from 20 to 50 to, today's the first of the month. There were 100, just under 100 new expireds. So I know there's a ton of people that are calling. They're my competition, right? So for me, it seemed to make sense that I wanted to be the first. Look, the expireds are the low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. And they're going to be the most motivated. If you catch them at the right point, they're going to be the most motivated. They've already raised their hand and said, hey, I want to sell my home, and their agent failed them. So I want to be the first person on the phone in the morning to connect with them, period. So for me, I made a commitment that I was going to start really early. And, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I can't call before 10, or I can't call before 9, or I can't call before whatever time it is. Okay, well, I got news for you. If you're not, I am, or somebody else is. So I want to be in front of those people. So my consistent action has been to be the first person on the phone. So for me, that looks like maybe 7, maybe 7:30, depending on how many leads there are. But I mean, I'd call it 5 a.m. if I had to.
Yeah. So then, to do that kind of volume, because I mean, you talked about before being in a stockbroker world where you have $60,000 months, which now you've replicated that, right? I can't remember the exact figure, but it was something like 60 or 64 grand or whatever. Like you just had your first month, that first big win of like, man, I'm duplicating what I did there. Yeah. But is that, so if you're calling that early, like what does that call time look like? Is it an hour dedicated, 2, 3 hours, 10 hours a day? Because I think a lot of people too, when they think about dialing, they're like, well, man, if I got to dial, because you do see people that post, I did 1,000 dials today to set one appointment. And then the limiting belief from a lot of agents, I shouldn't say limiting belief, but the thought process is, well, then shit, when do I have time to actually go out there and do the appointments? Right. So like on a week, and I don't know if you dial on the weekends, but what does that look like as far as consistent time, blocked off time each and every day that you are dialing that has resulted in this production?
Yeah, so I blocked out the first hour to 2 hours. It depends. I mean, look, my schedule's changed as I got more busy, obviously, and you got to really become a master of your schedule. You do have to become a master of time blocking. These are all tools that you've got to have in your repertoire to be successful. But you know, if you're not taking those first 2 hours in the morning to make those direct prospecting calls, it's probably a mistake. So that's where I find to be the most effective. But at the end of the day, if you don't have other business to do, you should be on the phone all day long, because there's always somebody you can connect with, period. So the daily expires, I like to hit early in the morning. If you miss that window, big deal. Go to the other expires. There's plenty of data to call. After that, hit the FSBOs. These are people who are out there that need help. They might not know it yet, but they need help. They need somebody who's a professional to go out there and get them more money than they ever thought possible. So how are you going to go out there and do it? Call them. It's simple. So, you know, there are times I think are more effective. The early morning time, I think is effective for the daily expires. The evening, you're going to have people home at night. They're going to be a little bit more receptive. I know I wouldn't take to a cold call real well in the middle of the day when I'm trying to work. But you don't know. So yeah, you just got to figure out what everybody's different, right? But for me, if I didn't have other appointments to go to, I'd just be pounding the phone all day long.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then, what does the follow-up game for these expires look like? Because, you know, I know a lot of people hit them day one out of the gate, but there's a small percentage that lists then, and then a larger percentage that lists over time. You know, do you recycle through those, or is it just like, hey, you have an abundance of expireds to call on a daily basis where you're just kind of hitting that day number one and then nothing for follow-up after that?
Yeah, so I got a lot better with follow-up, over the last year, right? I will be, to be very frank, I'm very effective in the morning. So I'm able to set a lot of appointments right out of the gate. I think I'm probably better than most at that. But as it relates to follow-up, last year I wasn't doing a good job managing the data. This year I'm doing a much better job managing the data. So in each one of these phone calls, I'm going out there and I want to get their email address. I want to verify it's their cell phone. I want to be able to text them a video message. I want to be able to get their email address and put them on a sequencing drip. These are all things I wasn't doing before. And then I just follow the sequencing that's within my perfect storm. And if I know their timeline, obviously I cut whatever we're going to sell our house in 3 months. Okay, I call them back in a month. I mean, but I've done a better job of getting very intentional with keeping the data and staying organized with it. Whereas before I was just kind of like shotgun blast calling everybody.
Yeah, love it, dude. So then can you give us an idea of realistic expectations of, it was like the story that you told when you were your first, kind of business venture of doing the work in 5th grade when you're knocking the doors and getting rejected. And I see agents that'll be like, man, dude, I called 100 expires today and got rejected by everyone. And I don't think this is for me. Like people allow themselves to get defeated, I think, so easily because they don't have realistic expectations of the amount of effort sometimes that it does take to convert one of these, and like you said, you've gotten better at managing them, having those conversations, being able to play the long game, not just the short game with these. But somebody that's going to jump into this, because like you said, it's a low-hanging fruit for anybody out of the gate. It's something that anybody can do. It doesn't cost a lot of money. But what are some realistic expectations that people should have for themselves when they're approaching this so they don't get defeated too early?
Well, I think they got to get their mindset right. So, I mean, the number that's actually, I just crunched the numbers because I knew we were doing this podcast, but it's 1,200 dials for me to make it for a closed sale. So when I do the math, it turns out it's somewhere between $7, depending on where I close the year. But basically I get paid somewhere between $7 and $10 a dial, right? So somebody hangs up on me, cha-ching, $7. Somebody tells me to go F off, cha-ching, $7 to $10, whatever it is. When you break it down that way, you realize, well, wait a second, I'm just paying my dues. You got to pay your dues. I mean, if you think dialing 100 dials is something special, then I got news for you. You're in the wrong business. It's a contact sport. You got to go out there, make as many contacts as you possibly can. And, you know the name of the game, get people to know you, like you, trust you, know you're in the real estate business, and your business grows. So, yeah, it's the mentality I like to bring to the phone, and I reflect back to when I was first starting. I thought I had to be, I don't know, I hear the term smile and dial. I hate that term. Smile and dial, no, it's not smile and dial. You got to be, if you're on the phone, your mindset should be, you are a heat-seeking missile for an appointment. You are going a direct sales pitch directly to setting the appointment. And if you don't get the appointment, cool. Well, would it offend you if I followed up what's your best email address so I can send you a property analysis? This way, we're both fluent in speaking the same language as it relates to price. Everybody says yes to that. Well, now what do you have? You got their email address. Okay, cool. Now they're in your database. Well, are you thinking about, there's just little questions that you can pepper them with to get a lot more information. But just recently I had a wrong number convert into they answered the phone. I said, hello, or whatever I said. And they're like, no, I'm not, you got the wrong number. I said, okay, well, do you happen to know anybody else thinking about buying or selling real estate? And they said, yeah, me. Oh, okay. I'll be there this afternoon. So I think it's important for somebody who's starting out on the phone to realize it's a numbers game. You're going to have to make 1,000. I make 1,200 dials to get a closing. You're probably not going to be as good as me on the phone. So that means you got to dial more. So dial more. It's that simple. Dial more. Now, look, this isn't the only thing I do as it relates to business. Half of my business is cold calling. The other half of my business is generated from Facebook's sphere of influence. So you can find ways to maximize your exposure, but I found the most effective way to connect with people who have been out there and want to sell their homes is dialing the expireds, the cancels, and the FSBOs.
Yeah, what I love about this business, dude, is there's not one path to success, right? But whatever path it is that you choose, you got to be consistent with it. Whether it is showing for expires, showing for open houses, or whatever the path is, like get laser focused, be extremely intentional with it, and go out there and be consistent and give it your all when you're doing that. And, dude, when I see agents not having success, it's like, man, you got to almost go out of your way to self-sabotage yourself to not have success in this business. Because if you just show up and do the work, man, you're going to fall upon deals. Yeah, right? So, you talk a lot about mindset, and can you kind of walk us through some things, that, because you share, when you share your story with us, you had a lot of things that you were defeated by, and now maybe some people's stories aren't as extreme as that, but I think all of us go through those times in life where we feel defeated and we just can't seem to control this. And I 100% agree with you of you control your mind and control the world. Yeah, right. What did you do? Can you go through some of the actionable steps that that really helped you go from that defeated mindset? I know you talked about the alumni event, but I'm sure there's a lot of little things that in between there. But also, it's not like one of these things that we just have this aha moment and then our mindsets are fixed forever. Like it's daily, constant work. So can you kind of talk to us of some of the stuff that you've done and continue to do to make sure that this is staying right?
Yeah, so for me, I realized, there were so many pieces that were out of control at different points in my life that I kind of had to just get very, I basically had to do like my own internal audit and figure out the things. Look, I went from, fast money, fast lifestyle. I realized that I needed to get sober to have the life that I wanted. That was a big thing for me. But I did it. Now, I don't know that that's everybody's, that might not be somebody else's story, but I knew for me, that was something that I needed to get right. Well, that created tremendous confidence within me internally because I knew I had done that. So I do that with, I make little micro commitments to myself and I achieve them. So if you're looking to create momentum and create a win for yourself, I would go out there. If I'm a new agent out there and I'm thinking about getting on the phone, I'd say, okay, I'm going to make 10 phone calls right now. And I would do it. That's a win. You're creating some positive momentum. And then the next day I would double it. I'd do 20. And I just continue to create that momentum. For me, if it's, I can get overwhelmed very easily if I start. You have a concept that you've talked about called winning the day, right? How do you even know if you're winning the day? Well, for me, I know that I need to make X amount of phone calls every day. I know that I need to do X amount of reach outs every day. I know that for me, I've got to go to the gym and, work out, maybe not every day, but damn near it. And I create momentum for myself and just checking the box. Did I win the day? Did I win the day? I've got 2 kids. I love playing with them. I coach soccer or whatever, but I schedule that stuff. So did I play with my kids at a high level today? Did I spend time with my wife at a high level today? Did I engage? Did I do something that was fulfilling? And that's it. You got to create momentum for yourself. And that's what it took me a long time to figure all this stuff out. So it's not like this was an overnight thing. But that's what I'm doing today, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, love it, dude. So, going into and kind of switching gears here, because we're friends on Facebook, and I see your involvement with your family and your young kids, and you're one of these guys where, you're intentional about your business, but you're also intentional with your family life. And it's so easy, man. I mean, anybody that I think has been a hard driver with business, it's so easy to let business consume everything, and if we're not careful, next thing we know, we can be that absent father. And you made a lot of shifts, because I'm guessing you're the previous Chris in the stockbroker world wouldn't allowed you that the way you operated there, you wouldn't be the dad you are or husband you are able to be now. But man, so many people struggle with this. And I hate the word balance, because I just don't know if it exists. Right? It's just that extreme intention. But what are some things there that you have there, the tips that you would give? Because this is something that so many of us struggle with, is trying to build our business of not letting those important things, fall short, like being a great father all at the same time.
Yeah. Look, I knew for me, well, first of all, my parents were amazing, right? So I come from a very close family, and it was important to me in fact, my family comes before my business. They're the most important thing to me. But I also know that in order for me to maintain the lifestyle and have the life that I want, I got to go out there and make it happen. So, I don't believe in balance either. I'm sure my wife would tell you I'm a lunatic workaholic. I don't look at it like work. To me, this doesn't feel like work. I'm just 24/7 doing my thing. And I think if you're committed to something, it's easy to make these other things work. It's easy I don't know if it's easy, but you find a way. That's a better way of putting it. You find a way to set priorities, and you just do what's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's the whole, saying of, when you're committed, you find a way. When you're not committed, when you're interested, you find an excuse, right?
Yeah. Look, for a long time, I had lots of excuses, right? I mean, it's easy to make excuses. The world is set up in a way to, kind of validate those excuses. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And so if you're committed to doing something, you're going to get it done. And that's why I love that's why I love GSDmode. I love the alumni, because you got committed people who are out there getting it done. So look, I'm fired up for this year. I mean, my intent going into 2019, I'm going to scale. I'm going to build. I'm going to expand. So for anybody in the local area who's looking to take their business to the next level, obviously, please reach out to me. And on a global level, join the real estate cold calls group, because you talk about giving back. I mean, that's my way of giving back. You can see me on a day-to-day basis battling people. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the videos I put out where, somebody pushes back to me on the phone, I actually push them back a little bit. And you'd be surprised how quickly you can convert somebody who's a little bit I don't know, aggressive or whatever into a prospect because they're just not used to it. So I don't know. I'm fired up about everything.
And I love it, dude. Because yeah, I mean, the group is amazing, dude. And those, I, I think it's so powerful for a lot of reasons. I mean, number one, it creates accountability, like you said, for your own self, and creates the environment for you to win, which is epic. But then you have thousands of other agents that can see what you're doing, learn from what you're doing. But I also think that, we make up these stories in our head of how bad certain things are going to go, right? But then when we start executing on them, like let's just say you're going to go door knock, and you make up this story of like how negative and nasty the replies and responses are going to be, and it's never as bad as these stories we made up in our head. And people can see that because these are live dials that you're doing, and it just creates a win in so many different ways. So, and I want to make sure we'll get a link for our listeners that'll be able to right below here where they'll be able to click and join the group. But one last time, because we have a lot of people on iTunes that are listening to this that won't be able to see the link or be able to see it visually. What's again the name? Like, where do they go search for on Facebook?
So it's real estate cold calls and lead conversion.
Okay.
Facebook. Yeah. And yeah, so look, I'm out there. I'm going to build an epic team going into 2019. If you're local and interested in learning more about that, then reach out to me directly. If you're global or in the cold calls group and you're interested in talking about coaching or scheduling a speaking engagement, anything like that, I'm available. And I'm fired up, dude. I'm going to double my production for next year. Going to do big epic things and hopefully model your business and get to where you're at. That's what I'm shooting for.
I love it. Well, you're way further ahead than I was at where you're at in the game. So I'm sure you would be crushing me, dude. So, yeah, and that was my next question, which you just kind of answered it of, I know that all these agents are seeing what you're doing and see how badass you are with it. Then I'm sure they start reaching out and asking for coaching help and but you're busy building your real estate team too. So, I'm sure there's limited amounts that you're able to do that. But what does that look like for somebody that does want some help here? What kind of coaching do you offer?
Well, that's something that I'm looking into for 2019. I haven't even, this is an opportunity for me to launch that. I get a lot of I get a lot of people who are reaching out asking me to coach them, but I'm at a point now where, obviously I got to focus most intently on growing my own business. Yeah. But as I go into next year, I'm going to roll out a platform. And, the short answer is, I don't know.
Yeah. I love it, man. Love it, dude. So, what do you see? So in 2019, you're growing your team and the goal is to scale this. With what is your plan, just out of curiosity, man, to scale this with the dials that you're doing? I mean, are you going to go the path of building on internal phone sales team, or like what do you see the vision for that being on your own team?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And for the last year, I've been playing around with different, trying to outsource those dials, and it's been a disaster.
I've yet to find one good virtual ISA company.
Oh man, it's not virtual, any IS. I haven't found any ISA company that's worth it. And so I'm not going to bash all the ones that I did try. But what I learned is that I'm really good at teaching people how to talk on the phone. I mean, I did that previously. I built teams. So for me, I've got to get intentional this year about creating that opportunity for myself. So I intend to go out there and hire some people and teach them to be assassins on the phone. And I've got a couple people in mind already. So yeah, I'm going to build that up internally, and then I'm going to start bringing in some buyer's agents. I've got some things planned with. I'm hoping I can do something with Brett here as it relates to Facebook lead generation. But yeah, man, I'm fired up for the future, 100%.
Yeah, love it, dude. So knowing everything that you know now inside your real estate business, if you could go back in 2015, like if Chris today could have a conversation with Chris, when you were first getting in the business, and give yourself, a couple pieces of advice that you felt were just fast forward your trajectory to success, knowing what you know now, what would that look like? I
would have got coaching way sooner than I actually did. I found you and got coaching right about the point I was ready to quit the business, to be honest. So I would have done that much sooner. There are systems, there are processes, there are models out there. Well, look, my playbook is totally dialed in and intact. So anybody out there who is looking for direction and you're local, reach out to me. But the advice that I would give myself is don't quit. Don't quit. You're talented. You know what it would be? To find your confidence. Be yourself. Don't fall into this. And I know that I think about it. Don't fall into this glad handling, like I'm a realtor, I got to say yes to everything mentality. That I fell into. Be yourself, be authentic to yourself, be true to yourself, listen to your inner voice, and get to work. Stop playing games. Get to work, get committed, do the work. And look, getting an accountability partner or some version of that for yourself is critical, because it's easy to, look, if I don't get on the phones for a period of time, it's harder to pick up the phone. You get like this momentum block or phone fear. I think I'm great on the phones. If I don't dial the phones for a week, it's harder for me to do it again a week later. So I would say just continue to be consistent with your action and don't stop.
Yeah, well, it's just like, because I know you and I are both gym rats. It's just like the gym, dude, right? Like you take a week off or 2 weeks off, man, you lose that momentum. It's harder to get back in that door. It's harder to, and it goes so damn fast, man.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that took me a long time, this journey now seems like, well, it's only been a couple of years, but in the moment, it seemed like forever. So, and I had these expectations for myself that probably weren't, I don't know if they weren't realistic or if I was too harsh on myself, but I had to learn to forgive myself faster. That would be something else I'd take from this, because I looked at these failures as personal failures, and they really weren't. It's just life. Shit happens, and you got to let go of that stuff quickly. It took me a long. I blamed myself for a lot of those things. So get rid of that. Get rid of anything that doesn't serve you and find something that does. And then when you find that, just double down on it and continue to spend your time and energy there, because it will serve you. And once you get the momentum, I mean, look, I'll close this year. So what was last year? Just under 3 million or whatever. This year will be somewhere between 10 and 12. But the momentum that I've created for next year is off the charts. So create momentum.
Yeah. It comes down to the whole like locomotive, right? Like you can have a little block piece of wood, right? Yeah. That can block a train from getting moving, right? But once it's got that momentum, man, it crushed through a 10-foot, concrete wall, man. It's can't stop momentum, man. So I love it, dude. Powerful stuff. And real quick, I know we talked about the Facebook group, but of those, maybe there's an agent that's listed this, that's in your marketplace that is interested of being a part of a winning team like you have and are looking to expand, and they want to get a hold of you, to have a conversation about that. Where's the best place to do that? Do you have a website or an email, or what was the best place for that, Chris?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me for anything really is chris@igoehomegroup.com. I'm everywhere on social media. You can find me everywhere. So Chris Igoe Home Group, Google it. You'll find me everywhere. And let's connect. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, powerful stuff. And those watching, listen, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation truly is a start of delusion. Information is the power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on it that creates the power. That way you can go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Chris shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Make sure that you take action. Take something that you learn and take immediate action on it, as well as right below this video, whether you're on YouTube or GSDmode.com, wherever you are, there's going to be a link right below where you can click and then go join the Facebook group, the free Facebook group that Chris has every day. And you guys, I'm in there. I see Chris doing these dials on a constant basis. It's something that all of you should be in. It's free. It's badass. And if you just implement what he does, man, it will change your career and change your life. So those of you that are watching and listening, as always, thank you for being here. It's been a massive honor. And Chris, man, I truly appreciate you taking time. You're busy to be here. It's been a lot of fun, brother.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. And anybody out there, send me your referrals. I'll take care of them at a very high level. This has been epic. I'm totally honored, totally grateful. And let's do it again in a year when I'm at, 25 plus.
Yeah, we'll do it, my friend. All right, thanks again, you guys, and we will see you next time.
All right.